Herb Tannen is an elusive artist. That is, his pictures defy interpretation, and their evolution from one to another is so drastic as to dissolve all consistency and to challenge the viewer to find an objective coherence to this subjectively sprawling body of work. Yet such coherence is, by now in the year 2000, an old-fashioned value, a value appealing most to niche marketing art dealers trying to show some consistency in an artist's product output from year to year. But it is not a value that must needs appeal to us helter-skelter seekers of new art with which to perplex ourselves. Are you looking to be perplexed? Look no farther. Herb Tannen is here to confound and confuse your self-confidence as an interpretive consumer of contemporary art.
As I tend to create, as I go along, a painting or a pastel, it's not so much that I know where I'm going. I go into, I guess a metaphor is I go into a dark room. I have no idea where I am. I'm in the unknown, and something touches me, and I sort of reach out for it, and then I start to take that and then move out into whatever my reaction to that is, and I add something else to it, and then I add something else, and it's a revelation to me, just as much as anybody else who might look at my art, because my paintings or my pastels sort of have a collection of different emotions and tensions that work against each other or play against each other. And I have no idea what the picture is like until the picture is almost 3/4 over, and suddenly it reveals itself to me.
Two 19th century literary men said it best. Walt Whitman wrote, "Do I contradict myself? Very well, I contradict myself." And Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds." Tannen's pictures are all improvisatory. He begins their creation with no plan or picture in mind. Image begets image, like procreators in the book of Genesis. And they all end up as one big dysfunctional family within the bounds of a single completed composition. The pictures may often seem light and airy, but this is very serious art. Each picture seems a new corner of creation, in which the earth has not 4 corners, but dozens. The only thing sure is that each new picture will bring something no one, including the artist, can predict. Today, this multiplicity strikes this viewer as a great virtue, whereas in an earlier age, it might well have been seen as artistic multiple personality disorder. The diversity of the products of Tannen's creation should be considered the eruption of a constantly self-reconceiving imagination, from a deep well of originality renewed with each new sounding of its depths.
When I was very small, I did not feel safe. A lot of the elements around me were not safe. And I tended to turn around and go inside myself to create a world that was safer to be in, that was more entertaining for myself, and also it gave me a little bit more freedom to live inside myself as opposed to the outside world, which was not safe. As I started to get into drawing and painting, I became more excited about it, and I approached my parents as I was getting to high school age to want to go to an art school, because somehow or other it felt like that was my biggest passion. My mother was from Russia, my father was from German extraction, and there was not a lot of culture in the family. We never went to museums, we never went to concerts, and so in their own worlds, the only thing that they thought I should do was to get a job and work at something and make a living. That was the traditional way. This was back in the 40s, the 1940s. And so I went to a regular school, and I continued to do my art on my own, and for my own pleasure and for my own creativity.
Tannen's pictures belong to a lineage beginning with the post-Cubist proto-surrealist work of Marc Chagall. The Cubist collage and the Dada photomontage of the 1910s and 20s occupy the next position in this succession. Next, in its intermittent course, one would place Surrealism's programmatic incongruity, initiated in 1924. Some highly relevant work containing superimposed figural imagery by the lesser surrealist French painter Francis Picabia comes next, and then the mature work of the major American artist Larry Rivers. The late work of Salvador Dali, his so-called composite paintings, occupies the prominent next spot in the batting order. Improbably, newly discovered obscure work done in Las Vegas in the 1960s by Catherine Giannakis completes this broken-up line of descent. What is clear is the relationship of this lineage to a manifold type of visual composition being experimented with and extended by a generation of artists who are at the current innovative frontier in the visual arts. Herb Tannen belongs in an organic way to this movement, the work of which can be described in general terms. The movement's first principal quality is an original combination of imagery from a disparate range of cultural sources being employed in a single painting. This can mean imagery taken from the tradition of European art history, from the art of other world cultures, past and present, and from more popular levels of art and life within the artist's surroundings and remembered cultural environment. The second prime aspect of such painting derives somewhat from the first, a deliberate variety of styles, both abstract and figural, being employed within the bounds of a single work. The third salient quality is a non-unified picture plane. That is, various images and scenes in a single painting are montaged, so to speak, or overlaid. They are represented together, whether juxtaposed or superimposed one over another. The resulting work of art contains objectified subject matter which in mundane reality could not occupy the same three-dimensional earthly space or place. Having said what Tannen's pictures have in common with this movement, one must recognize that his work is quite unique. Neo-Symbolist Surrealism might be as good a descriptive label to assign it as one can find. Why is work of this type both appropriate and important at this particular juncture of cultural history? Visual art was completely dismantled under 2 centuries of Romanticism, beginning around the year 1800. The dismantlement of technique and visual detail is not remarked at first, but it begins to be obvious in a painter like Turner, gathers considerable steam with Impressionism, accelerates rapidly through Post-Impressionism, and explodes in Cubism and other branches of early modernism when abstraction suppresses figuration. Surrealism then attacks representation from another angle, illogic, and this leads methodologically to abstract expressionism. By its simplifying, reductive nature, the further rigorous development to post-painterly abstraction and finally to minimalism was a progress that removed all content and literally stripped art down as far as technique is concerned to its basic building blocks and physical raw materials. Now, it is up to artists like Herb Tannen to reconstitute the visual arts with cleared decks upon which to work.
Sometimes I wonder about whether or not the taking the risks in creating a painting are similar to what I do in life, and I feel that one connects to the other. The more that I give myself permission to take risks in life, to choose options that may be different or more risky, I find that I'm more at ease to take the same risks in painting. And as I use my art as part of my processing in life, by being a seeker and processing in life, one helps me with the other. The more I live in the moment, the more I am with a particular emotion or with a particular set of emotions, the more I have options to move in any way that I choose to, and that I do think that I'm a risk taker, and I do think that it comes with things like truth and honesty. Not so much that it's the right thing or the good thing, you know, as you read in the Bible, that truth is a good thing, but I find that truth frees me up to take risks, to go beyond the boundaries, and it stimulates me. It's like almost like an energy that stimulates me to go further and not be afraid, because fear is always the thing that stops you from taking risk.
Then there is the surprising phenomenon of Tannen's sculpture, carved from driftwood with the same non-prescriptive, innocent aimlessness with which he begins his two-dimensional works. These pieces are fascinating in their unidentifiable forms, their formless, philosophical fragments of physical possibility, their new birth of fractally infinite nature.
A great deal of feeling and passion and essence of me goes into a painting. If that comes out of a picture and it touches somebody, no matter how it touches them, whether it touches them in a gentle way, whether it stirs them to thought, whether it causes them to reflect back about something, as long as it touches them and it moves them in some way, they then have the choice to go with it wherever they want. If I tell them what my visions were, what my feelings were, I rob them of that experience. So I just sort of ask people, well, what were you feeling when you looked at this painting? And they'll start telling me, well, I felt inspired, I felt sad, I felt whatever the emotion is. And I said, was that okay with you? Yeah, it made me think of my mother, or it made me think of when I was a child. And that's fine. I don't need people to know my feelings as much as my being able to touch somebody in some way that moves them. That's all I want my work to do, is just to move people in some emotional way.
We are happy to be enriched by these objects and mystery scenes, extending as they do our notion of what it's possible for the world to contain, meanings of depth we would have no access to without Herb Tannen's particular, profuse, strange gift of creation.